So you're now recording.
Okay, it's good morning to you, Mr. Lubin W. Hunter, veteran of the World War II. I'm going to ask you for you to give us your name, your date of birth, where you live, and your service, what year you joined and what year you was discharged. And we'll get into the places that you have been. But to open up, we want to thank you. We're now on the Shinnecock Indian Reservation in Southampton, Long Island. We're at the Shinnecock Museum and Cultural Center located on the reservation. At this time, we have veteran Lubin W. Hunter. Thank you, Mr. Hunter. Could you kindly give us your full name and date of birth?
My name is Lubin Walter Hunter. My date of birth is May 28, 1917. And I was born here on the reservation until I went away in high school, college, went to the city, New York, to work because there was no work out in this part of the world. And when I retired, I came back home, and I'm not too far away from where I was born. Which is true, because I am not too far away from where I was born.
Well, what kind of work?
Did I do?
Yes.
Well,
How old were you when you first went out off the reservation?
I was 20, when I first went off to college, to Brooklyn College, I was, I think, 19 years of age.
Okay. Well, before we go there, could you give me a little bit about the childhood on the Shinnecock Indian Reservation?
Oh, yes. Today, this part of the year right now is reminiscent of what it was when I was a kid, because when we had football games, sometimes we had it all in snow, and we didn't see the ground until Easter, which is true. And when I was in grammar school, which was down here on the reservation, we had a Mrs. Thompson who had the whole 8 classes from 1st grade to 8th grade. And then when you got to the 8th grade, you had to take New York State examinations in geography, English, mathematics, history, and other little subjects. And if you passed them all correctly, then you was allowed to go to Southampton High School. And I went to Southampton High School, and while I was there, I was in school with my brother Earl, with Artie Davis, Lester Davis, and Earl Crippen. Those are the young guys that was in school with me at the time. And of course there was quite a few of the village guys, such as the Enstein boys. In fact, Milt Enstein was the only one I saw the whole while I was in the service. And I went to Brooklyn College, and then President Roosevelt passed that draft integration thing, and we all had to go and fill that out, which we did. And so...
How did you fill it out, veteran Rubin?
I filled it out as a Shinnecock Indian Reservation, and from the Shinnecock Reservation. And when I took the exam to be a part of the aviation cadet program, the service, why I filled it out, and I went and took the test and passed it, and I got called. And from there, I came home in August. I went back into the service in September, and I didn't come out. In fact, I didn't see anybody from my part of the world outside of one of the Enstein boys. I met him in Chicago. I was going back out to Las Vegas, Nevada for gunnery practice from the airplanes, and he was coming. I was going out west, and he was coming east, going to Europe. And we met on the station in Chicago, and I guess people must thought we might have been a pair of fairies because we hugged and were so glad to see one another. And he was the only one I ever saw in the whole while I was in the service, because I thought that I was going to be going down to Tuskegee to the Alabama school, but they didn't send me there. Said no, I couldn't go there because I was American Indian, and I couldn't go to that black outfit. And so I said, well, that's where it is, it is. So I went down, and then when I came back from Shinnecock, I went back.
So it was segregated at that time?
Oh, yes.
Tell us a little bit about that.
The whole service services and military services, Army, Navy, Air Force, you name it, was all segregated, very much so.
Even to the Native American Indian?
Even to the American Indian.
And what kind of segregation did you personally, veteran hunter, experience?
Well, when I came in August to go to the Veterans Organization, to the Air Force Cadet School, I was sent to with quite a few boys from the Eastern Seaboard, New Jersey, Connecticut, New York. That was our group, and we all got on the bus and rode down on the bus from Jersey to Greensboro, North Carolina. And on the way down, we'd all said, well, this is our last time to be civilians, so let's go out and spend this night. And we all went out, and everybody got to drinking. And in the morning, when I raised up the windows on the curtains on the train, because you couldn't do it at night because you couldn't put lights on at night in the train. And I looked out and I saw these red banks. I said, oh my God, I drunk myself blind, I can't see. And it was that red earth of the South that I was looking at. And I had never been south before in my life, and sometimes I said I wished I had never been down there. And so I went there, and we went to Greensboro, North Carolina, to the cadet training school. And from there, when we finished our basic training there, we got sent out to another place called Galesburg, Illinois, Knox College. And there we had to do our studies in order to be able to be engineers on the airplane, or to be navigators, pilots, you name it. And we went there and we finished there. We had to go out to Burbank, California to study the B-17, because that's where we was all going, B-17s. And we went there, and we went to that's where they made the B-17s at that time. And so we went there to Burbank, and when we got time off, we was able to go to Hollywood, and we went, and I had a beautiful time in Hollywood. And when we finished Burbank, we had to come back to Las Vegas, Nevada, to practice air-to-ground gunnery and air-to-air gunnery in the planes. And we had all, in Knox College, we all had been taught how to fly a plane, and we all had been taught how to fly and land a plane, so we all knew that. So what we had to do now was learn how to protect ourselves in the air, and that was at Las Vegas, Nevada. And it was interesting in Las Vegas, Nevada, because we said, oh gosh, we're going to go out there, there's a big time out there, all the girls are going to be out there. So when we got up to Las Vegas, Nevada, we didn't have nobody. The general had for 50 miles around, he had taken all the houses and whatnot out of existence, and we were just as bad off there as we were anywhere else in the world. And that was interesting. And from there, we had to go down to Biloxi, Mississippi, to learn how to have flights. When you get your plane got knocked out, you had to jump out. You had to go down in the water. You had to learn how to survive in the water, or to go out to the sea and learn how to pick up somebody that's knocked down in the sea. That's which we learned. Then from that point on, we went out to Sienna, somewhere out in Kansas, and we crewed up, and the rest is history.
That was in what year?
That was 1942,
Okay.
43. 43, we was crewed up and sent out.
Sent where?
We was told we was never supposed to tell where we was at and what we was doing. And I couldn't write home because at that time they used to check the mails. And if you told where you was at and what you was doing, the Germans knew it, the Japanese knew it, and so you was putting yourself in jeopardy. So we could not write home. We could not tell anybody where we was at. And I didn't see my family or anybody from this part of the world until I come home in 1945.
Veteran Lubin, what particular countries did you go to?
We went, in the Air Force, and in fact, I brought a thing with me from my General Hap Arnold. And he was our commanding officer, and it wasn't like we was told beforehand where we was going, what we was going to do, because we never knew where we was going when we got told you're going to hit the plane at 2 o'clock in the morning. So we all had to go to bed at 2 o'clock in the morning, or whatever the hour was, wherever we had to go. We had to get up and be ready to go, and got on our planes, and we went. And so we never knew until we was in the air at 10,000 feet, and then the captain or the pilot had to open his envelope and tell what his mission was and where we was going. And that's the only time we ever knew where we was going or what we was doing.
Now, was there many casualties that you've seen during the war? Yes, I know it was.
We lost planes, we lost people. Mm-hmm. And in fact, I remember one time we was having breakfast, and there was a famous test pilot. He was taking the new suit planes that they had, and he went up in the air, and we heard this crash. We looked out, went outside, and he crashed, went right down. And that was our first big excitement. But then after that, when we was in the service, in the air, in the flight, going back and forth, and the enemy was attacking us, we lost planes, left and right. And so I'm happy to be home.
Mm-hmm. So that means you did see combat?
Oh, yes.
Yes. What time and what unit were you with when you saw combat?
I don't have that with me, but I have a piece of paper with me. I'll go get it for you, and you can read it. That of not Captain, but at that time General Hap Arnold. He was our general, and he was the one who instructed us and gave us our report when we had to come in off the field. He had us all come in, give us a report of what we did, where we was at, what we saw, and what we did. And then we had to go to bed because we had to get up and go the next day.
And how long were you in the theater of war?
Well,
less than
43 until 45.
43 until 45.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And did you get wounded, or were you a prisoner?
No, no prisoner. I never got wounded. We got fatigue that tell us that, because when you was in the air for 12 hours, 13 hours, and then had to go back to your base, if you get back to your base, and go to bed, and then you didn't know what time was going to call you for the next mission, and that's how it went. So we was always half asleep most of the time when we come back. Yeah.
As a Native American serving in the armed forces, what made you go and serve the armed forces?
Well, everybody had gone. My brother was in, so we had these. Oh, Earl. My brother Earl was, his number was, I think, was 137 when we made out that form for that first registration we had. And then when Roosevelt said that we are now at war and you people will have to be gone according to your numbers. And my brother Earl was 137, I believe, and he was in the first group that went. And when he left, we was all very close, and all the fellows that was of age had gone. And so I was left at Brooklyn College, and I said, well, if I don't go now and take my choice of where I want to go, I'll be stuck and I'll go where they put me. So I said, I want to go into the Air Force. And the Air Force was a new setup at that time, especially what do you call it, the aviation cadet program was something new that Roosevelt had set up. And I'm glad he did, because I don't know if I'd have been able to go anywhere, because I couldn't go down to the other place there I thought I was going to go to. And,
Which was?
What's it, Montgomery? What's that place they went to in Alabama? They had that big school, yeah. And I thought I was going to go down there and said, well, I can be with some people that I could see. And but it didn't work out that way. I was with a white outfit from the beginning to the end. I never saw anybody of existence from this part of the world that I could relate to in any way. It was, but I got to admit that there was all a bunch of young college kids like myself that had volunteered for this program. And so we was all in the same boat, and we came along beautiful. I can say that I never felt with that particular group segregated in any way. But when we got south, it was a different story, because they would see me in this crowd of white boys, and they'd say to themselves, what's that black face doing in this outfit? And sometimes I used to have to fight once in a while, because I'd come to the table, to the serving table, and the white guy serving potatoes would reach over and throw the potatoes on my shoes, and we had to have inspection every morning, and I had to go back and shine up my shoes and get ready for that inspection. But outside of different things like that, I had no difficulty, because the boys that I was with, they was with me all the way, and we had a beautiful time together. And in fact, when I had to leave them, when Mr. Truman, President Truman, said that all those men who want to go home in 1945, you all should do is sign your papers and we'll send you home. And those who us wanted to go home, why, we signed the paper, and I was on the train in December coming from south. And in fact is, when we came back from the service from flights, we came back to the same place that we had when we first went down to Greensboro, North Carolina. In fact, the same, seems to me like the same particular outfits that we came back to. So I left there and came home, and on the train, coming from Greensboro, up until we reached Washington, D.C., it was segregated. And so I was I didn't know about that business at that time. And so I went in and took my seat, and somebody complained that there was a black man on the train. So the conductor come along and told me, young man, you have to move. I said, why? He says, because we don't allow colored people on the train. And he said, let me see your papers. And I showed him my discharge papers. And he says, oh, you're an American Indian here. You've been with a white fit all this time. I cannot move you. And I stayed on that train all the way to Washington, D.C., where I changed trains to come home. And that was the only good thing about being in the South that I experienced.
Oh, that must have been a good experience there at that particular time. And
yes.
It happened, yes.
Yes.
And now, once you arrived, once you got back to home, the Shinnecock Indian Reservation, in the town of Southampton, but on the reservation, how did it feel to you coming back home?
Well, actually, since I had not seen anybody from the reservation or even from Southampton outside of Enstein, so I came back home, but the town and the reservation had been changed all around. When I left the reservation, we had dirt roads, kerosene lamps, and we had wood-burning stoves and a pump that we used to pump water with and all that stuff. But when I come back home, they had the roads had been tarred, electric lights. Some people had electric lights.
What year was that?
And that was in 40. I didn't get back home here to. I came home to Brooklyn in 45, and then that was in December, and so I didn't get home until the spring of 46.
So you did things in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
Tell us about it.
Well,
You arrived in Brooklyn?
I went to Brooklyn College, and when it came time for to either make a decision of getting a job or going into the service, I said, well, I don't want to go into service at this time, but I guess I better get a job, because Roosevelt had said that we've taken all people except those who are in college and have a job. That is a war benefit job. We don't. So I said, well, I get those kind of job. So I got a piece of work over in Hoboken, New Jersey, as a porter on a shipyard. What's the name of that shipyard over there in Jersey? They was arming and renovating British ships that came in for war service. And so I got that job there. And while I was there, I didn't do anything. I didn't work until 12 at night till 8 in the morning. And so while I was doing that, I got acquainted with a young white boy from Louisiana. And he says, honey, you a college kid. What are you doing? I said, well, it's the only job they gave me. And he says, well, let me show you how to do this. And he showed me how to use a chipper and caulker tool. And I spent that there with him after I got finished my job at night. I'd go with him, and he taught me how to use a chipper and caulker. So after a while, the Brooklyn Navy Yard had an opening, and they needed help. And so it was advertised in the paper, all those with any experience on the ship, you can come down here and go to work. I said, that's going to help me. So I went down there, and I got hired. But they said, well, you're a good chip and caulker, so we'll give you 3 months of training on Navy style. And I went to work for that, and I worked there from 6 at night to 4 in the morning. Every day, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. And I was good. I learned how to chip and caulk very well. And I know 2 ships that I worked on, I laid the keel for. That was Missouri and the Iowa. And I worked on those 2 ships. And after a while, from 6 at night to 4 o'clock in the morning, you was up working. I believe you, I tell you, you was working, hanging over the ship, and just a little 2 ropes coming down on a piece of board, and you was welding things into the ship and fixing that up. And I was tired, so I saw this piece in the paper sent out by President Roosevelt. All young men of college education, and he named the height he had to be, and the time you had to be, and you had to be a certain height, because in the B-17s, if you was too short, you couldn't stand in the overhead position, and if you was too short, you couldn't do that. And if you was too tall, you couldn't go in there. So you had to be a certain height, certain education, and a certain military ability.
How did you feel making that requirement?
Well, at that time, I was, 21, 22, and so it didn't mean much to me. This is something I knew I could do. So I went ahead and did it. And then, as I say, then from there, we went from 39 Whitehall Street in New York, and then went down to Greensboro, North Carolina, and Knox College, and Biloxi, Mississippi, and Las Vegas, Nevada for our further training. Then we got crewed up in Kansas, and we went, and that was it.
Mm-hmm. So, in totality, how long did you spend in the service?
From 42 to 45.
Okay. And veteran Lubin, when, like I say, once you came home, how, I know, like you said, it was changed, but what about the family that you came back to here? How did they receive you? You know,
well, actually, no one knew I was in the service. Because as I told you, when I went I was in Brooklyn, I was going to school, and then I went to work, and so I didn't see anybody from the reservation. And so when I come home, I didn't wear, as soon as I come out of the service, come to Pennsylvania, I took off my stuff and threw it in the garbage pail. Because I didn't want the uniform no more. And that was it. So when I come home to the reservation, I didn't get any big welcome as a welcome hero, because no one knew I'd been in the service, and I didn't feel like telling anybody that I had been in the service. And so I never told them until one day when I was home here. I'd come home, retired, and built my house here on the reservation. And my cousin Harry, he had been in the service, and he was visiting me that day, Harry Williams. And we sat there talking, and a knock come on the door. I said, go ahead and open that door, Harry, and see who it is. And it was Francis Fox. He lived in Connecticut. And he said, I'm over here for the day, and I thought I'd check you out. And sure enough, but when he saw me, he almost fainted. I said, Harry, catch him before he falls down. And so we took a long time. He stayed with me quite a long time, and gave me his address. And I thought I was gonna get over that way and go see him, but I never got over in his direction. But he was the only one. That's when Harry saw. He says, "Oh, who?" I said, "That's Francis Fox. He was in the Air Force together." And he recognized that I too had been in the service. But up to that point, no one knew I had been in the service, because no one had seen me. No one knew I'd been in the service, and I didn't wear any uniform. So that was it.
Mm-hmm. Now, upon that, though, like you said, that particular moment when veteran Harry Williams, from the same era that you were with,
Yeah.
World War II era theater, once he realized that you were his own baby cousin to
I
him.
was his older cousin. I raised him from a baby.
How did he feel about that? What did he say
Well,
to you?
he didn't know what to say. He was so confused. He didn't know. I said, "You never told us that you'd been in the service." I said, "No, it wasn't. There's nothing to talk about. I had seen enough to be talk about of horror that we had done, and that's something I regret all my life. And I know that when we was flying and dropping bombs, that we was killing people. That I said, that could be my people. That could have been over here, and they could be killing us." And I said, that's why I have no great idealism about being in the service. And I said, it's a terrible thing when men go to war and shoot one another and they don't know each other. Have no reason of shooting one another. So when I come home, I didn't exploit the idea that I'd been in the service and have a great time. But that's the way it was. And let me go get this form I got. You can read it by my general, Hap Arnold, and you can see how he felt about the war and what he felt about us young guys who had gone in and done his work. Well, let me go get it.
We're going to receive that piece, but at this particular time, what I want you to try to relax and do is now tell me a little bit more about your civilian life now when you got home. In other words,
When I come home,
bring us up to date.
they was in 45,
In
and then 45, when I come home to the reservation, there was no work out here. There was nothing to do, so I said, well, I fooled around with Harry, because Harry had been home before I got home, and he had got contact, and he was more or less a good man, that he was able to get work for the fellows that was home. And I worked a couple of days with him. I said, no, I can't do this, because all they was doing was strictly digging holes and that sort of stuff. There was no really educated work, and I had So I said, well, I'm going back to the city. And I went back to the city, and the first job I had in civil service was I worked at the Jamaica. At the Jamaica bus terminal, and at that time it was trolley cars in there, and I was sweeping out trolley cars, and then the next exam that came along was for railroad clerks. I went on the railroad clerks, and I worked on the 8th Avenue, and then the BMT subway. Yeah, they had just started to be the 8th Avenue subway at that time, and I worked on that. And then I had finished college while I was working on the subway. In '53, I finished my college, and I said, well, I got something to start on. So I got my degree in '53, and from there, the next big exam that came along was for, what do you call it, for working for the welfare department as an inspector, social inspector. I took the job, I worked on that, and in the meantime, the housing authority had just started up, and I worked in I had taken the job for the taken the test for the housing authority, and so I was working with the social service department. I was a social investigator, and I worked there. So then we had the top 2 floors of a school down on the east side. And so the school said that they needed the whole school now. And so they started splitting them up and sending people up in the Bronx. And I lived in Queens at the time. And so I said, how can I get way up to the Bronx to get to work? So since I was on the housing authority job list, I got called, and I said, well, I have to leave this job and go to the housing authority because they can only have just so many buildings at that time. So I went to the housing authority, and I stayed there till 1973, and that's where I retired from. That was my first retirement. Then I went from there, I went to the IRS, and they told me said, well, if the IRS, he says, this is a permanent job.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a permanent job. So if you stay for 2 years, he said, and they said, if you stay 2 years, you can get a pension from us when you get 65. So instead in 2 years, I spent 10 years down there. And I became a pretty good help down there. In fact, when they closed down that great place they had down there in the lower part of Manhattan, where everybody went after work from every place in the city, but the guys didn't pay their taxes, so we had to shut them down. And I was in that group. What was the name of that place? Because nothing but the rich people went down there.
Okay, not City Hall, but down there by the waterfront up there.
Yeah, down in that area down there. So we had to get down there and shut them down. Well, part of my job in that was to fix the doors, so when the other agents come in at that night to check them out, they
I'm going to pause it.